Hi there, Jen Russell coming to you with some more tips and ideas on how to move your body well, not only during this very strange time we're living in, but any time. I have been creating these videos in a particular order, and they would be the order of priority for me if you were a client coming to see me at my office. Today I'm going to sidestep a little bit to a particular question that I received about having increased neck and shoulder tension, tightness, pain right now. And I was thinking about why that may be. And I think there are three main factors going on. First of all, we are living in a time of high stress and anxiety. We all realize that. You can't look away from that reality. And stress and anxiety can create problems for pretty much all of our systems, but today I'm going to address particularly the musculoskeletal issues and the surrounding structures. When we go into that fight or flight space, what often happens is we stop breathing altogether, we start holding our breath, or at a minimum we start breathing more shallowly, and we kind of go into this shrugged up place of defense. And that can cause a lot of problems, especially if we're living in that space chronically. Second of all, I think a lot of us are also having to be a little bit more sedentary if we're working from home, doing back-to-back Zoom meetings, or maybe we're doing classwork as a student from a device or a tablet when we're used to being in a classroom setting. And what I want to give you is some information that I'm hoping will feel feasible, some advice that will feel reasonable and possible. Because what I don't want to do is add something else that's going to make you feel guilty or feel pressure, like it's something else you have to do. There was a study done in 2017 that had some pretty solid results that indicated that only 1 minute of physical activity per half an hour was enough to decrease some of the risk factors for cardiovascular problems, diabetes. And so what I would like to say is we want you to move well, but I also want you to move often. And I think even if you're in the middle of a Zoom meeting, because I'm not asking you to do burpees or push-ups or sprint down around the block, I'm asking you to just get up and move in some way. That could literally mean pacing back and forth behind your office chair for 1 minute. And if you need to set an alarm on your phone, do it. Because 1 minute of movement every 30 minutes can make a difference. So I want to throw that as a possibility. And in addition to that movement, or maybe even within that 1 minute of movement, I want to add a third factor that I think is going on right now. And that is some positional problems, some postural problems that I think are probably arising right now for a couple reasons. I think a lot of us are having to set up home offices that are maybe in spaces that weren't meant to be offices. So we're sitting at a kitchen table that might not be the right height. There's some ergonomic problems that are going on. Potentially kids are sitting with devices, and especially with tablets and phones, I find that not only do we have the tendency to hunch over this way, but if we're looking at something that's down this direction, instead of just having our eyes gaze downwards, we end up dumping our whole head forward. And there's a number of issues that arise when we hang out in this forward head position. Our head weighs anywhere between 9 to 12 pounds-ish. It's like a bowling ball. And we really were designed for our heads to sit squarely over our shoulders, with our ears kind of approximated over our shoulders. And so if you are living with your head forward, you are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on muscles back here that really weren't meant to have to hold up the whole weight of your head for extended periods of time. And they are muscles that are very close to places where all of our nerves need to go through to communicate to the rest of our body. And so a really simple way you can offset that issue is by doing what we call a chin tuck, wherein you take your chin and you press it backwards. What you should feel is an activation in the muscles in the front of your neck here, or the front of your throat, kind of deep in there. They're probably muscles you haven't ever thought about, and it's gonna feel a little strange maybe if you've never done this before. It's a relatively small movement, but again, the chin is coming backwards and it's gonna help you bring those ears more in line with your shoulders. So we're not going back that way, we're just bringing in our chin. I like to say you're gonna give yourself a nice double triple, whatever, multiple chins. So you're just gonna hold that for a couple of seconds. You should feel a lengthening in the back of your skull area. You shouldn't feel any tension or pain. It might feel a little strange. You're gonna repeat that a few times. That is a drill that I give to almost everyone, because even when we weren't going through this insane time we are now, we spend way too much time looking at devices. And so that's a really simple thing you can do to offset that forward head posture. And if you have watched my other videos, the chin back cue is part of what I cue my clients in order to get themselves ideally aligned to have a stable trunk. So that's a simple one, and you can do that all the time. I would do it if you're gonna move for a minute every 30 minutes in the course of the day. Throw the chin tucks in every few times. You can do it when you're sitting in your car. You can do it lying down. It's a really simple drill to help get your head back in its proper position. The second thing I'm going to tell you is, if you get into what we call our supine 90-90 position, which I went through in the breathing videos, you can do a couple things. First of all, just being in that position is a very safe place for our body, and so it can be very calming to our nervous system. So if you get yourself, the hips and the knees are both bent at 90 degrees, get yourself a chair. You also could do this with your feet against a wall. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna try and activate some of the muscles that surround our shoulder blades that tend to get down regulated when we're spending a lot of time hunched forward. And with any of these activations, these movement patterns, you shouldn't feel any pain in your back, your neck. If you feel any discomfort, please stop. So you can bring your hands, and you're gonna think about your thumbs going back towards the floor. And you're just gonna go back as far as feels comfortable to you. If you can't get them all the way back, that's perfectly fine. But what I don't want is in order to force your hands backwards, that you arch your back. So we wanna keep nice and stable and sturdy. And again, I go through this position a lot when I go through the breathing drill in the other videos. But you can just bring your hands, and your thumbs are gonna go towards the ground. To get another muscle, you can bring your arms out just a little bit wider and come back that way, and that targets a muscle called your lower trap. And you can do as many as feel good to you. And then you're gonna take a nice inhale, stabilize your trunk, and then roll to your side and push yourself up. Another position that I'm gonna be going through in a video in the future is going to be a position called half kneeling. And half kneeling is another great place to work on trunk stability, because you're not having to think too much about balancing your whole body. We're just on one knee, and you're gonna plant that knee directly below the hip. This can also be really good for opening up your hip flexors if you're spending a lot of time sitting, again, which a lot of us are doing right now. And so if you think about just pushing into that back foot, we're just trying to create a nice solid foundation. I'm gonna scoot back just a little bit so you can see a little better. And you can do those same two drills that I did lying down, but similarly, I don't want you to end up arching through your back, so you might not get very far, and that's okay. You can bring the arms straight out to the side this way. You can bend the elbows and squeeze back that way. You can take the hands and bring them back behind your back. These are all very simple, but not necessarily easy. Often when we concentrate, we focus, and we try and do a movement well, is actually much more challenging. I can see lots of people do and they start, flailing their whole body while they're doing movements, but to do a very small and controlled movement with a stable trunk can be really challenging. The final position that I will be going over in future videos is what we call a quadruped, or hands and knees. And just getting into this position while holding on to the positioning cues that I go through in the other videos of having a long neck and that chin back or chin tucked. Imagine your chest is nice and wide and your ribs are pulled down so that you don't arch through your low back. If you push your hands away from your shoulders, that in and of itself will start to create some activity and action in a muscle called your serratus and a little bit in your lats, which are muscles that are antagonists to the muscles that get really, really tight when we hunch over forward. So just hanging out and breathing in this position, this is very active. This isn't just kind of flopping, hanging out. We're really pressing our hands evenly into the ground. We're pressing our toes into the ground. We're engaging through our abdominal muscles. And just breathing here. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Can be challenging. Especially maintaining that chin tucked position and not letting that floppy head thing happen. So those are a few ideas I had for offsetting that forward head positioning, that rolled shoulder position that I think a lot of us are spending way more time than we would like to be right now. I'm going to make a second video about releasing a muscle that gets really tight when we hang out in that position. It's called your pec minor. So look for that video. It's just going to be a really simple way that you can get a little bit of release in the muscles, because what happens in these postural problems is we have certain muscles that are overworking and certain ones that are underworking. And so what I'm doing with the activations we just went through is trying to activate or wake up the muscles that have been underworking potentially. And in the next one, I'm just going to do a simple release of one that potentially is overworking. So I hope you found this helpful. And as always, please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, concerns, and I will look forward to seeing you back here soon. Thanks.